In this video, we'll show you how to replace the inner tie rod on your Ford F-150. This is located in the front of the vehicle and part of the steering. Let's get started. Go ahead and remove our hub cover. And we can remove the lug nuts with a 21 millimeter. If your wheel is stuck on the hub, we can put one of the lug nuts on partially. And then we'll use a hammer on the back side. I'll be using a dead blow, that way I don't damage the rim. We'll go ahead and loosen our jam nut with a 24 millimeter wrench. We can go ahead and remove the cotter pin from the outer tie rod. I'll be using a set of side cutters for this. Bend the ears straight. And then I like to use the side cutters, grab the end of the cotter pin, and then pry it out. We can remove the nut for the outer tie rod with a 21 millimeter. We can just thread the castle nut on just a little bit while we remove the outer tie rod. To release the outer tie rod from the knuckle, we'll go ahead and strike the knuckle right here, but be careful not to damage anything. We can go ahead and remove our castle nut. We can set our tie rod off to the side. It looks like our old tie rod was greasable and greased very heavily, so we'll have to go ahead and clean this area up. Now we can go ahead and remove the outer tie rod. I'm going to hold the inner tie rod with a 15 millimeter wrench. We can go ahead and start turning this off. As you turn, we want to count the turns. That's 1, 2, 3, and so on. 24, 25 and a half. The amount of turns we have and the amount of turns you have to do to get the outer tie rod off might be different. Now we need to go ahead and remove the jam nut from the inner tie rod. I'm going to use a set of locking pliers to hold the inner tie rod while I remove the jam nut. We have one small clamp at the end of the bellows boot here on the outside. I'll be using a set of needle nose pliers. Go ahead and remove that. We'll set it off to the side. Our inner clamp has a small opening on the back side. We can go ahead and use a flathead screwdriver. Start working it in there. And then if you twist the screwdriver, you can start to open it up. To remove our inner tie rod, we need to use an inner tie rod tool. There's a few different versions of these. This is what we'll be using. And slip this over the inner part of the inner tie rod. Now we want to clean out the threads of the steering rack. I'm going to use a little brake clean and a wire brush. Before we install the inner tie rod, we'll go ahead and apply a little bit of thread locker. We'll be using red, and just a little bit'll do ya. Now we can go ahead and thread in our inner tie rod. Now we can go ahead and tighten this to the best of our abilities, making sure it's good and tight. In order to install our bellows boot, we need to remove the nut from the inner tie rod. Now we'll just apply a little bit of silicone paste where the outer portion of the bellows boot will install onto the tie rod. I like to pre-install my cable tie onto the bellows boot before going on to the steering rack. With our bellows boot slid onto the steering rack, we can go ahead and tighten down our cable tie. I'm going to use a set of needle nose pliers. And we'll just twist the cable tie, and that'll tighten it down. And we can use a set of side cutters to trim off the excess. You can go ahead and reinstall your outer clamp. If it doesn't fit over the new boot, you can go ahead and use another cable tie. Now we can go ahead and apply a little bit of anti-seize where the nut is going to sit on the inner tie rod. When installing our outer tie rod, make sure you remember to count the number of turns, just like when we removed it. One, two, three, and so on. 24, 25 and a half. And I'll just bring the jam nut down to the outer tie rod. That way it's in its place. With the outer tie rod on the inner tie rod, we can go ahead and install it in the knuckle. And we can install the castle nut. Now we can go ahead and snug this up. And we'll torque this to 85 foot-pounds. We'll install the cotter pin. I'll use a set of side cutters and certainly use needle nose pliers. I'll just fold the ears of the pin around either side of the nut. Go ahead and tighten down our jam nut. And I like to center the outer tie rod. Now go ahead and give the vehicle a test drive down to your local alignment shop. We can go ahead and install our wheel. We'll go ahead and snug those down in a crisscross pattern with a 21 millimeter. We'll torque these to 150 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. We can reinstall our hub cover.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.